welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is 7 p.m. on Monday, April 10th, 2023. Would all please rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up, we have approval of the agenda. The agenda's been distributed. Are there any corrections or revisions to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Moving on to the minutes. The minutes are printed in the packet on pages 6 through 8. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as distributed?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved as distributed. Moving on, we have a public hearing on the agenda tonight. This hearing has been scheduled to receive public comment on the proposed assessment of costs related to the 2023 Park Row Street and Utility Improvements Project. Notice of the hearing has been duly published in the St. Peter Herald, and affected property owners have been directly notified. Action to consider the adoption of the assessments is scheduled under new business. Instructions are available on page 9, our public hearing instructions. We will first take comments from staff, then there'll be an applicant's presentation. We don't have an applicant tonight, followed by public comment. All speakers in the public comment portion will have 5 minutes to speak. We generally don't do a back and forth of question and answer with the council. And as I said before, the action will be taken up under new business. So here I see we have Jeff and Pete.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, let's see, yes, we are opening the public hearing at 7:02 p.m.
Madam Mayor and City Council, as we have discussed in the past, the Park Row project that we're looking at runs on Park Row from South 3rd Street to South Washington. The improvements that we have planned for this area include curb, gutter, street, sidewalk. There are approximately 18 sanitary sewers that will be repaired and 5 water service lines that will be repaired as a part of this project. We have taken the new assessment policy and implemented that. As you're aware, we started under the old assessment policy, and we did make some modifications to the assessment policy, which did reduce the amount of costs that homeowners will face along this area. And as you're aware, as we go through the project, you have roughly $741,000, which will be completed of work on that property. If waivers are signed by individual property owners to get on private property and do some additional corrections, there'll be $103,200 that would be assessed by waiver. That does not impact the base assessment. So each of the property owners, as you will see later in the discussion, will be costed out according to the assessment roll that's on page 35 of the packet. Jeff, if you have anything that you'd like to add to.
Yeah, no, you did a good job explaining everything there, Pete. You know, the notices that were sent to property owners about the assessment hearing, that's required by Minnesota statute. So those notices did include the updated amounts, the assessment amounts based on a new policy that was adopted by the City Council. So the numbers that the property owners received are those that are represented in that policy. Other than that, I think nothing more to add. Thank you.
Thank you. As I stated before, there is no applicant presentation tonight, so we're going to move on to public comment.
Okay.
Is there any member of the public who'd like to make any comment at this time? All right. Hearing none, we're going to close the public hearing at 7:05 p.m. and we will move on to visitors' comments. Now we have time on our agenda for Scheduling visitors to comment on any agenda item. Is there any member of the audience who'd like to comment on an agenda item? Hearing none, we have time for general visitor comments where a member of the audience may comment on any matter whatsoever. Hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins with a memo on page 10 of the packet and concludes with the resolution on pages 30 and 31. The resolution includes the following budgeted purchases in excess of $25,000 to Irby for 3 PME 9 underground switches, to Border States for primary underground wire, 15,000 feet. The amounts are listed in the packet. Geldner Underground for 2023 directional boring, the recreational group for synthetic turf at Betts soccer rink, and MP asphalt maintenance for 2023 crack sealing. Again, the costs are listed within the packet. The following renewal license application, subject to payment of the licensing fee in compliance with city code regulations, to Gustavus Adolphus College on November 1st, 2023. And the following seasonal employee appointments at the wages listed in the packet: Timothy Mayo, a tree worker, and Peyton Gunderson, a laborer. And correction to the municipal fee schedule, it will be modified with the amounts listed within a packet. They are general parking violations, the minimum fine, and up to 7 days, and then after 7 days, and snow emergency parking violations, the same. The minimum change to the minimum fine after 7 days, and prior to e-charging at 31 days. As well as the schedule of disbursements from March 23rd, 2023 through April 5th, 2023. Is there any discussion of any items on the consent agenda? Carrie?
Todd, I had a question related to the municipal fee schedule change and just that process. It's on page 17. So I was attempting to understand, so I understand that the change is from 21 to 30 days of where it's held at the police department. What is the process of e-charging? What does that mean?
So that's what's really driving this, is the timeline related to the electronic charging. So in today's world, tickets aren't given in the old way where there was a book where you wrote it out and you handed people something, and then the piece of paper followed through with the police department and then to the court. Now it's done electronically. And so that's changed the timelines. What's driven this and why I'm bringing this to you is frankly something really practical, which is the police department's out of these kind of envelopes. And so we want to make the improvement so it goes forward with the appropriate timeline based on how this works with the court system.
So I understand it's held at the police department for 30 days, and then on the 31st day, so the next day, it's going to be forwarded to Nicollet County.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? I generally point out that I work at Gustavus Adolphus College, the temporary gambling license. I'm assuming that's related to homecoming, and that's through the alumni office, which
Yep.
I do not work as a part of the alumni office. So just like to be totally clear with people on that.
This is a renewal. As
Yeah.
members may know, renewals come on the consent agenda and new license applications are separate agenda items.
Yeah. Hearing no further discussion of the consent agenda, the resolution before us on page 30 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharpström,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Briggs.
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. We have no items of unfinished business tonight, and so we will move on to new business. The first item of new business is adoption of a resolution adopting assessments for 2023 Park Row Street and utility improvements process. That begins with a memo on page 32 of the packet. Hi, Pete.
Madam Mayor and City Council, we're here tonight to ask you to approve the resolution on pages 34 and 35. On page 35, it talks about the total base assessment, which is the base charges that we would assess property owners to complete this project. As I'd mentioned, and as Jeff had mentioned earlier, roughly 30% of the cost of this project will be assessed. That total amount will be about $227,832.62. about 70% of the base charges will be paid by the city in the amount of $513,942.20. We do have some additional work out there, which would be completed through waivers. And as you're aware, what we'll do now is if the council takes action tonight, we will work with property owners to come up with terms for not only the base assessment, but the waivered cost as well. And I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thanks. Questions for Pete? Carrie?
I guess one question I was considering and looking back through the history of all the steps of this process and revising the assessment policy, were there property owners that experienced, from what they expected and from the change in policy, a large adjustment than what they were perhaps expecting based on their frontage of their property and how it used to be calculated?
During our open house, we had a couple people that wanted to compare why their lot, which may be smaller than some of the other lots, came up with paying the same amount or the larger lots paid less. And we explained most of them were because they were side yards or they were on a corner lot, really just talking about the policy. And so for them, it was one of those things that didn't make a lot of sense, but it's based on overall project cost. And some of the other issues are, there's a front yard on some of the others that will be assessed if that road is ever improved, where these lots do not. But we did get good feedback from most of the customers. We're happy with the deductions that they received. And we're very positive about it. They've been very good with our utility superintendent and maintenance superintendent on discussing improvements and trying to get some things accomplished there.
Remind me, the open house was after we made the assessment policy changes?
Yes, we had one before and one after.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could add one thing, I think it's also important to note that the council committed that if we had given someone an estimate of their assessment, that if the new policy increased their assessment, that we would stay at the previously articulated amount. And so you'll see that reflected in here. Those are generally the ones on the table under Exhibit A that might have an odd number under that street assessment base rate.
Correct.
So, anyway, just so that you're aware.
Thanks for that
Great.
reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Dustin?
Pete, thanks for communicating this, and the feedback that I have gotten from a handful of residents is a very positive outlook on how we addressed the policy and communicated this with the homeowners. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Let's see, the resolution before us begins on page 34 of the packet. That is a resolution adopting assessments for 2023 Park Row Street and Utility Improvements Project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenthal?
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpsma?
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Moving on to adoption of a resolution awarding bid for refuse and recycling hauling services.
Mayor and members, this is an item that you've talked about quite a little bit. It starts on page 36. You'll see on page 36 a table that outlines the bids that we received. As you'll see within that table, we received bids from 3 separate service providers. One service provider also bid an alternate. And so those have been reviewed, and the recommendation from my office based on the bid specs that you put together and the contract that you reviewed is to award the bid to West Central Sanitation on an every other week recycling basis, which is the same as you have currently. As you know, Mayor and members, maybe the most significant change and what I would consider system change is that you offered the opportunity for bidders to bid every week recycling or every other week recycling. Again, you currently are on every other week recycling, and that's the recommendation. That recommendation is based on data that frankly is a little bit old, but I think is still really accurate relative to the habits that you see within St. Peter, in that when we went from weekly to every other week, there was not a significant change in the weights that were provided. I would also mention This provides at least some opportunity, whether it's in June or July or August, to provide for a reset of the size of Kirby that people have in place. As you know, we've worked diligently with the current service provider to provide multiple Kirbys for recycling if necessary. Or in this instance, we're going to hopefully, let me phrase that well. If you decide to hire a new contractor based on the recommendation, we'll work diligently with your customers to hopefully be able to manage Kirby changes if necessary, really signified by size changes. So as an example, at the Prafke House, our recycling gets pretty full and we have a 96 one. Well, we're kind of going to be stuck with a 96 one, but if we had a 60 and that was overflowing on that week and a half, there may be value in providing opportunity to your customer base to move to that 96. Again, that's something that we have to work with a future contractor, but I think there may be opportunity to do that, at least in a limited basis, to provide a reset and to give an opportunity for your customers to, well, pause and think about what works best for them as well. Not to mention, and I gotta mention this out loud, so I said not to mention, but let me say it out loud. We do have other opportunities for people to provide a disposal opportunity for their recycling at Swift Street. And so people can use that at any time, 24 hours a day. You get a super big box because you bought a refrigerator, right, and it won't fit in your Kirby, you can take it down there. You know, there's opportunity for sure. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but again, generally the recommendation is based on the price that you see outlined within that table that's on page 36. I believe that any of the contractors that bid this could do the job. Your previous contractor has been an excellent contractor for you, but this is business and we provided a bid opportunity, and I'm confident that if you select West Central Sanitation, they'll be able to do a good job. My process for this is that as we have a low bidder, we do some follow-up work, not only with them, but with clients that they have currently. And we've heard positive comments about West Central Sanitation as well. Again, I'd stand for any questions, Madam Mayor, or members that you have. The resolution that's in your packet is really directing staff to finalize the contract. As you may recall, the contract was draft in nature and provided some options. And I think it's a good way to provide opportunity for any contractors to know what your expectations are. And so our goal would be is, again, if you approve the resolution, that we'd finalize this with whomever you select. And there's not additional action on your part. We know the pricing, we know the selection, be happy to do that. One last thing I'd mention is West Central's alternate. As you know, they provided an alternate that really meant they would start providing service at 5 in the morning. And that's super cool and a wonderful way to articulate that. I can tell you now that when we started when your current hauler starts at approximately 7, there are times when we get calls. There's beeping and noise and all those types of things. And so sticking in a similar fashion, at least from my perspective, probably is best suited for your customer base currently. Again, I think there's certainly room for discussion on that, but that's my recommendation based on the experiential knowledge we have of working with your current contractor and previous contractors. So that's my recommendation.
Okay. Questions for Todd? Daryl?
How many years is this contract?
5.
5. Is there a cost inflator every year then?
There's an opportunity for the contractor provide a request that relates to the Midwest CPI. That is the same as we have in the current contract.
And we will need to adjust our rates now for our garbage collection.
Yes.
When we have to approve the budget.
Yeah, so I anticipate that coming back to you at your upcoming workshop, assuming that the council takes action tonight on this item, because this is a major part of that budget, so we've been waiting for that. Yeah, that is the case. Again, just to give you sort of an order of magnitude, the current amount generally you're paying on a per customer basis, per customer per month, which is how these numbers are laid out, is approximately $7.28, Sally. Yeah, $7.28, so that gives you an order of magnitude. And this industry, along with your business or your private businesses, has seen increases in wages and fuel and all of those kind of things as well. So this is not unanticipated from my perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks. Emily and then Brad.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that I agree with the 7 a.m. start time as opposed to 5. I'm living across the street from some of the businesses. We get some of the beeping, and I can imagine that that would just be really annoying to residents in residential neighborhoods. So that was one thing. And then I also really, I like that it's a Tuesday, Wednesday system. I think that, I know I've been caught off guard a couple times by Monday holidays and having to switch the days forward. I kind of think that might streamline a little bit for our customers. So those were the two things I wanted to say in favor of West Central.
Thanks, Emily. Brad?
So I'll have a few questions. Number one, on food waste, how many bins are we, I know we had talked about we want to go beyond the 2 bins. How many were discussed with?
So the contract provides an up to 6.
Okay.
But we have not determined whether it's 2 or 4 or 5 or 6 yet. I think we still need to work on that, and I think as a part of the contract, it allows us to adjust into the future. This isn't a substantial adjustment. I think, especially with that issue, location matters, not just as a convenience issue, but as a smell issue as well. And so I think that's something we still need to work out and potentially have some discussion on. But again, it provided up to 6, Brad.
And then the other question is like, have you looked at what kind of, say, literature the vendors, like West Central would provide? For example, with LGP right now, we get this nice calendar that shows recycling week, non-recycling week.
Yep. Same kind of thing as
Okay.
expected.
Okay.
As you know, we work with the vendors, so we absorb the postage and those things.
Yep.
It comes as a part of your utility bill. And so those things will go in place. I should also mention, since you mentioned it and Emily mentioned it just a little bit, we have not had discussions about what the calendar exactly looks like for this. So what holidays are observed, those types of things. At least from my perspective in drafting the contract and having the discussions with you folks, while that's important to your customers, it's not a basis for decision as to whether you're going to accept one vendor or another vendor. So those are some things that will get worked out, and we'll of course report back and do everything that we can to make sure that people know what's going on.
I just wonder, because that calendar is the lifesaver for me.
It's me
figuring out
too.
whether it's
We
a
got it on our
recycling week or
fridge.
not. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the next question was just on size of garbage cans. We had talked about the potential of allowing residents to go as little as 35 gallons.
Yep.
Is that going to be something that would be available with going with West Central?
Yeah, so that was a part of the bid process
Okay.
and was listed off in your contract. So if I can expound on that, Madam
Sure.
Mayor, no matter who you selected tonight or who you select, there'll be an opportunity for 4 types of service. Currently, there are 3 types of service. So the current types of service that you have related to refuse are a 90-plus gallon container, a 60-plus gallon container, and then a bag system, which is you buy the bag and you set the bag out, and then it gets picked up. We added this time to that, again, the 96, the 60 plus, a 30-something Kirby. And the reason that we did that is, again, based on feedback that we receive on occasion from folks, and again, this would apply to anyone that you select, is that, man, sometimes the bags rip, or sometimes I have to set it out the night in advance and I'm afraid something will get into it. Or, it's really heavy when I have it full, and wouldn't it be cool to have a little cart on wheels to get it out to the corner or out to my curb? So yes, we will be having the potential for 4 types of service, and that'll be part of our communication with your customer base. And as I've mentioned before, I do expect that in some respects, that will overtake your bag system for many folks, and that the number of bag system users will likely go down over the course of this contract. So, but we'll see. That's just my guess, my prediction. But those are some of the feedback that we hear and why we've kind of gone in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
Again, Madam Mayor, I think any of them could do it. Our current hauler's done just a great job for you. Anyone that you select here can do a good job for you. And we'll have some meetings with, if you change vendors, we'll have some meetings with the new vendor to finalize the contract. It's not my plan to bring that back to you. This authorizes us to go forward once we have those days of the week and those types of things, calendar, et cetera, settled.
Last call for questions or discussion. The resolution awarding bid for refuse and recycling hauling services is on page 38 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstrong,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Moving on to adoption of resolution formally accepting an MPCA climate change grant. Pete.
Madam Mayor and City Council, back in January, city staff made application to the MPCA to do a little work that's been kind of on our radar for about 30 years. The area just west of St. Peter is our drinking water supply management area, also known as our DWSMA, and that's an area that we work very hard to try to protect. Water not only that enters the aquifers out there, but travels through the ditch system and through what will soon be Highway 361 in that area. We were successful in getting the grant approved. We've been after a portion of a grant to study that area for quite some time. This year we were successful. We were partnering with ISG on this study. From this, we should be able to identify a lot of the issues and quite a few of the solutions that can help us improve drainage and retention and change how things are done out west of St. Peter. We have two major ditches that come down from the west and serve, that carries water through the ravine areas there. They are ditches 51 and 33. And our goal would be really to evaluate not only the sediment and the water volume, but the nutrients that come through there. We do have a high degree of nitrates that come through those areas. It's an agricultural area that is mainly tiled, and so we're looking in the future here to make some differences in how things are done out there. What we're asking tonight is that you approve the resolution on page 41, which would allow staff and your city administrator to sign the agreement with the MPCA. This would formally accept the grant funds. As I mentioned earlier, or maybe I didn't, $63,100 is the total cost of the study. 57 of that would be covered in grant funds. We'd be working with ISG on that. 6,100 would come from the stormwater fund for that purpose.
Thanks very much. Are there questions for Pete? Yeah, Carrie.
When would the study take place?
We would start this summer and take about a year to get completed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Emily?
Any idea, like I know you have to complete the study first, but
Yep.
any idea of what some of the outcomes might be? Like whether there's planting or terrain changes or what might happen?
I think we've had predetermined ideas on how this should be accomplished. Our goal would be to find out what really works. A lot of the hydrology that's happening in the agricultural community is changing. They're finding better resources, better use of resources as we advance. And we're hoping we can find something that fits not only what the city would like, but what the farming community would like out in that area. We have applied for several grants in this area before, but because we didn't have the studies done that would determine a cost benefit for that area, we were not successful. Once this is completed, we should have a very good chance at soliciting for and receiving additional grant funds that can implement a lot of the study findings.
All right, thank you, Pete.
Anything else? The resolution accepting a Minnesota Pollution Control Agency planning grant for stormwater, wastewater, and community resilience is printed on page 41 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor?
Oh, yes.
I will be abstaining from this vote due to the financial interest of this company.
Thank you. All right.
Right.
Yes.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstrong,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Abstain.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Moving on to adoption of a resolution retaining ISG to prepare a parks master plan. Pete?
Madam Mayor and City Council, as you're aware, we have been soliciting bids to have a Parks Master Plan completed for the next 15-year planning period. We have a resolution on page 45 that describes the activities that we're looking to accomplish. Really, what we're trying to do is collect data, evaluate our park system, and set a path and some goals on how we can achieve a better park system than we already have. As you're aware, we've got 6 areas that we look to address during the course of this study. I won't read them all to you except for the idea of where they're at. We're looking to engage the community and get some feedback. We recently have received outstanding feedback from not only the Gorman Park project, but the Hallett's Pond Park project. And so what we're trying to accomplish here would be to do this on a broader base for all of our parks. We have worked with ISG on a variety of other projects, and we're happy with the outcome of the bidding process here. We did have 6 qualified vendors that submitted bids, and as you can see on page 44, very tight in how much it would cost to pull this together, so there was a lot of interest. We hope to start this project this summer and be done by mid-January, so we would have this during the budget cycle and talk about some of the improvements that we'd be looking forward. And if not completely ready for the 24 budget, we would be ready for the 25 budget. This project would be funded through ARPA funds, and I'm asking that you approve the resolution on page 45.
Thanks very much. Questions for Pete about this? All right, well, you're off the hook, Pete, in terms of questions. The resolution accepting formal written proposal for development of an updated Parks Master Plan is on page 45 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Councilmember Ruflin?
Aye.
Councilmember Sherstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis?
I abstain.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Noel?
Aye.
Thank you.
The resolution is approved. Thanks, Pete. Moving on to adoption of a resolution authorizing receipt of formal written proposals for purchase of old fire hall at 227 West Mulberry Street.
Mayor members, this starts on page 46, and we've talked about this a number of times. From my perspective, I've been thinking and talking about it for about 7 years. Some of you maybe not quite as long as that, so forgive me if I run on, or please stop me, but this is really a process to divest our interest in the current fire hall, which is located there on Mulberry and 3rd Street. How this has been envisioned is that a request for proposal process would allow anyone that has interest to indicate a number of different pieces of information to you, all of which you could use in a decision process, which would ultimately indicate who you choose to sell the property to. There are a number of different ways that we could look at this. Certainly, you wouldn't have to sell this property. You could keep it, but we don't have an identified immediate need. Councils in the past, and you've seemed to indicate as we've had this discussion ongoing for the last couple of years, has been that, well, if it's not something that we really need or we don't have a very concrete plan for utilization in the future, it's best that we divest our interest in it, and which does a couple of things. It puts it on the tax rolls, and hopefully we get somebody in there that employs people and frankly uses lots of utilities, right? And so that's our goal as we look at these properties, and this is a process that provides for that. You had an opportunity at your workshop to review the draft RFP, and I know we have a date that's an error on there for a tour. Brad had noticed that, so we can make sure that we solve that. But the process would be to advertise both on our website and at other locations that this is available, and again, solicit a few pieces of information from folks. First of all, who are they? What are they willing to pay you? How much earnest money are they willing to put down? What are they planning to do with the building? Maybe some concepts or ideas about how they might change the exterior of the building. Certainly, currently in its use as a fire station or fire hall, there's lots of big doors. That doesn't work for many businesses that might want to locate downtown. So what would they do with those big open spaces? How would that look in the historic context of the downtown, knowing that they can't make major modifications to the Mulberry Street side of that building? So those are some of the pieces of information that we've had. Ultimately, proposals would be brought back to the city council for your review, and my hope would be ultimately there would be a sale of the property based on the review of all of those pieces of information and the data that interested parties provide for. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and again, ultimately, I think our goals are certainly you have a revenue stream that you're looking to meet as a part of the revenue stream for the new fire station. Certainly you want something that fits within the context of your downtown, not just from an aesthetic standpoint with historic buildings in the proximity, but also a utilization downtown that feels good and that you can be proud of as a part of a new entity's investment in downtown. Hopefully this is a way to provide that data to you so you can make the best decision for the community. Mayor, members, the resolution is in your packet, and really what it does is kind of says go forward and do an RFP and then report back to us once you have that information.
Any questions or discussion on this item? We've had the opportunity to discuss it a few times, and so, yeah.
When you get the dates for tours, just let us know.
Yeah, so I've been in communication with the chief, and the goal of having the tours or two opportunities is that since we're selling the building as is, people might want to take a look at it and know what it looks like, or maybe measure something, or who knows, and so we want to provide some organized opportunities for that, frankly, so we're not running down there or having people show up 172 different times, or try and have it in an organized fashion. And so that's the goal. So we will, Daryl, thank you.
We do hose testing in the first couple weeks in May, so if you come down the right night, you can help roll hose.
We'll focus on that. Maybe we'll get folks that are interested.
We will gladly get it scheduled for those nights. for
Who
you.
doesn't want to be firefighter for an evening and do all the cool stuff?
And every once in a while, one of them blows up. So just letting you know.
The last item that I'd mention is that we'd anticipate that the closing, after you make a decision, would happen sometime in December. That gives us opportunity for the current fire station to be completed and for the department to move to its new location and really to make decisions on some of the things that aren't going anyplace. Do we sell them garage sale style, or what do we do? And so we need a little bit of time for that. So that's the reason for the timeline.
Sure. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, the resolution authorizing receipt of formal written proposals for purchase of City Fire Hall at 227 West Mulberry Street is on page 51 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ruthven,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Moving on to adoption of a resolution authorizing execution of documents related to Small Cities Development Program funding for Parkview Manor project. I already, before the meeting, had a chance to talk to Todd. I'm proposing on page 53A that we replace the word handicap with disabled in both the first paragraph and bullet point number 5. It's just a more current terminology that we tend to use, so.
So we're happy to do that if the council passes a resolution. You don't necessarily have to pass a resolution that says that. We're happy to accept that as direction. But really the overall goal here is for the council to approve an income reuse plan, a fair housing plan, and a fair housing policy for the St. Peter HRA. These are all things that are covered in rule or in law in some way, but the funders, namely HUD and DEED in this instance, want separate or articulated plans or policies for these items. And so we want to ensure that we maintain our eligibility to receive that funding. And so that's why these two plans and one policy come before you. Again, there's nothing here that is out of the normal or unusual or that isn't a part of current rule or practice or policy that you have in place. Again, approving the resolution here approves each of these two plans and the policy and maintains our eligibility for the grant funding related to the St. Peter HRA and the work that we're planning to do there. Be happy to answer any questions about the memo or certainly any of the policies or the plan and the policy that's included in your packet.
Questions for Todd? Hearing no questions, the resolution adopting income reuse plan, fair housing plan, and fair housing policy is on page 54 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharpster,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefett.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Moving on, adoption of a resolution accepting a donation from the St. Peter Lions Club.
Mayor and members, we want to call out or do a shout out more accurately to the St. Peter Lions Club. They're providing an opportunity for a very gracious donation of approximately, of $13,025. Their goal for this is to pay for the materials that are the flagpoles at the new fire station. I've been in contact with the Lions Club, and they provided really a nice amount of information, and Ken Russo has done a very nice job. The reason that this comes before you is because it's a donation that's above the level at which either department heads or the city administrator can accept. And so you have a policy related to donations. And again, this is a very gracious donation. In recognition of the donation, we would put a plaque inside, likely in the memorabilia cabinet that's being built as a part of the project, so that they could be recognized. The reason not out on the flagpole, quite honestly, is because normally there's not a lot of people out by the flagpole to see that, and so in the main hallway will be an area where it can be recognized and people would see that recognition. The resolution's included in your packet, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you might have any about this, and again, thanks to the St. Peter Lions Club for their generosity in looking for this.
Any questions or comments? Well, thank you to the Lions, one of many great organizations that we have in St. Peter, and we appreciate their generosity. The resolution accepting St. Peter Lions Club donation is on page 56 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bluefett,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpster.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Members,
Yes.
before we move on, I thought somebody would ask me about why $13,025? That seems like an unusual amount for donation. That is the cost of the materials for the flagpole as bid as a part of the project, so just so that you're aware. And thanks to Lions. Pete, you're a Lion. Thanks, Pete. Jeff, are you a Lion
Good.
too?
Yes.
Yep.
Jeff, Jim.
All right. Jim's a Lion too?
Jim,
Moi.
we've
Oh,
got a
all
lot.
right. Way to go. Okay.
Carrie.
We've got a lot of lions in the room.
All right. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you to all of you, and I'm sure you'll convey our sincere thanks to the other Lions. Our final item of new business tonight is adoption of a resolution awarding bid for 2023 bituminous materials purchase. We saved the most exciting
It is the
item
most
for
exciting.
last. All right, Pete.
Watch out. Watch out.
Yeah. Madam Mayor and City Council, with our usual maintenance package, this year we have $182,900 budgeted for street improvements that include overlays, full block, full depth patches, pan patches, and a variety of other mixes. We have several mixes that we put this package together. Your streets foreman, Mike McCarthy, does an outstanding job of working with the maintenance superintendent, Joel Schmidt, putting this package together and then bartering with these guys to get a decent price. Actually, tonight what we're asking for is that both of the bidders be authorized to supply materials to us, should it be needed. Usually what happens here is we use an overall cost estimate or a calculated cost to find out what's the cheapest route to go once the bids are received. We didn't do that extensively this year because the prices were very close together, and the distance is the hauling cost because the distances are 3 miles versus 20 miles. We can get the same mix from Nielsen. It'll just take a few more trucks and a little more cost in order to elevate that or to get the work here. But when Minnesota Paving and Materials are working, they fit our needs very well. We have some rough estimates on the dollar values there, and we're asking that you allow us to purchase up to $182,900. And based on the information that's on page 59 and 60, which is the resolution.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Pete or any discussion? All right, Seeing none, the resolution awarding the bid for 2023 bituminous materials is on page 59 and 60 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Berthman,
Aye.
Councilmember Sjöström.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to reports. My first agenda item is a proclamation declaring Arbor Day and Arbor Month. Whereas Minnesota's forest treasures were a significant attraction to early settlers because of their usefulness and the beautiful environment they protected, and whereas trees are an increasingly vital resource in Minnesota, enriching our lives by purifying air and water, helping to conserve soil and energy, serving as recreational settings, providing habitat for wildlife of all kinds, and making our cities more livable. And whereas Arbor Day was founded on April 10th, 1872 by J. Sterling Morton at Nebraska City, Nebraska, and whereas in 1876, Minnesota became the 4th state to adopt Arbor Day, and whereas the citizens of St. Peter have proudly participated in the celebration of Arbor Day and Arbor Month for many years, now, therefore, I, Shannon A. Noel, Mayor of the City of St. Peter, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2023 as Arbor Day, and April 2023 as Arbor Month in the city, and encourage citizens to participate in tree planting activities in their homes, at their homes and businesses. The only other item I wanted to report on tonight, which I think is relevant to Arbor Day, was just a recognition of the recent anniversary of the tornado, which we didn't discuss at our last meeting, but I think if you live in St. Peter, you've probably had a discussion with somebody about that recently, and I recently spoke with a resident who was unfortunately losing some trees due to the ash tree removal that's happening throughout St. Peter due to EAB, and that resident really felt really strongly, made them think of the tornado and all the trees that were lost at that time, and just how much work and growth has happened since then. The growth of the trees, of course, but the work of the city in maintaining our urban forest. So thanks to Pete and everybody at the city who works in that regard. So that's it for me. We will move on to reports from any council members. All right, on to you, Todd.
Madam Mayor, I have 3 listed, but I'd really like to cover 4. The first is spring street sweeping. So I'll ask Pete to talk about that. As you know, we sweep streets a lot, and there's some great reasons for that. So Pete, if you'd share with us a little bit, that'd be great.
Sure. We began street sweeping towards the end of last week, and we'll continue as weather allows us to, and with 80-degree weather, I think we should be able to accomplish what we need to. A little bit of ice in the curb lines yet, but we're trying to work around those. Street sweeping is important for us because we're going to begin hydrant flushing here tonight. And so we'll have a lot of the areas, we're just trying to stay ahead of those guys right now in the north end of town to accomplish that. But street sweeping also takes a lot of sediment away from our stormwater system and keeps it from reaching the Minnesota River, which carries nutrients along with a lot of the solids there. So our crews will do a good job. They will have 2 sweepers out there, a variety of trucks, so be careful when you see them out there going back and forth.
So Pete, before you leave, let me go to number 4 under others. Hydrant flushing starts tonight, so talk a little bit, share a little bit about that if you would, please.
Sure. We have about 640 hydrants, and we'll have a crew of 4 out there working from about 8 p.m. to about 6 a.m. So hopefully you do not see any disruption in your service at all. If you do have any rusty colored water or cloudy water, give us a holler. Usually it goes really smooth when we flush at night because there's time for water to settle down before it's used in the morning. And we haven't had many complaints, so we're hoping for another successful flushing season.
So Pete, what do we do? Why are we doing hydrant flushing? What the heck does that purpose does it
Well,
serve?
the water's been in the system on low flow areas for about 6 months now. Last flushing was in October. And so we do that to clean the system out, get everything ready to roll for higher use, and so that everybody sees a little higher quality product.
Pete's team also follows up with hydrants that may be not working or near replacement. Pete's team replaces, I don't know, anywhere from 3 to 6 every year.
Right,
And so that's how they developed that list for hydrant
right.
replacement.
We do the checks there to make sure that everything's working when the fire department gets out there to
Yeah.
put a fire out.
Yeah. Thanks, Pete.
So Pete, actually, before you go, I got a question for you. Back to street sweeping. So like I and my neighbors, we have a lot of sand in our yard. Seems like
Yes.
there's a lot more sand this year. What do you advise we do with that? Do we just take our leaf blower and blow it into the street?
No.
Okay. So what should we do
Don't
about
want
that?
it back in the street. If you wanna remove it, you can haul it to the compost site out at Public Works on Swift Street there, and that can be mixed with the grass clippings and will become compost.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great question.
Next item that I have is just a quick report on No Mow May registrations. I can tell you that as of earlier this morning, there were 3. So, we'll see if there are more than that. And so again, we've made a good push and we provided a program. We have some really cool signs and all kinds of things that people can register for No Mow May at 2 locations. First of all, at the police station at 227 South Front on the police station end of that. 207 is that address, sorry, 227 is the other side of the building. And then here at the rec department during their regular hours, generally from 8 until 5, Monday through Friday. So people can register at both of those locations. So anyway, we've had 3 so far, so we'll kind of keep you in the loop a little bit as we get more closer to the end.
And it's cash or check?
Cash or check, please. And it's $25, and then when you bring your sign back, we will credit your utility account at $20. The $5 covers the signs and all of the registration, all that kind of stuff that goes on as a part of this. The last one that I have, Madam Mayor, is seasonal employment. I want to mention that seasonal employment opportunities abound within the city of St. Peter, working with some cool people, getting to do some cool things that maybe impact the environment or keep baseball teams or soccer teams or softball teams playing. There's lots of great stuff to do, including teaching kids how to play t-ball or working at the pool. So we'd encourage folks, if they have an interest in a summer gig, now's a great time to apply online for seasonal employment with the city of St. Peter. Our website is www.stpeter, all spelled out, SAINTPETERMN, St. Peter MN.gov, and you can go to the employment section there. There's a square kind of generally on the right-hand side of the computer mid-screen. Click on that and you can see how to make it happen. Madam Mayor, that's all I have.
Any updates on MnDOT's Highway 169 9922 project?
As people can see, there's work going on down there. I don't know if Pete might have better information than I do, but they're working along Elm Street there with some temporary apparatus into the future, and they had an open house last Wednesday,
Yep.
which Pete and I were at. I don't know if any of you were there. Maybe we missed you. Pete and I kind of overlapped a little. I don't know, Pete.
Yeah, construction is underway. Did have a little bit of public input. It's gonna be hectic down there this time of year, right through probably June, July, where the majority of the vacationers come through. But they do have the road set up for closing certain areas, and detours are posted on the not only our website, but MnDOT's websites. And so you should be able to see that, and we'll keep putting them in the hot sheet in other areas that can help guide people in the right direction. But we expect activity to take on here for about 5 months.
Be patient with DOT, be patient with the contractors, be patient with us. We know this will cause a hassle on travel time for folks, but it will be better when it's done. And I don't know if this falls into you can't make omelets without breaking eggs, right? It will be a mess for a while, but people will be able to make it work. Patience with everyone. I guess the other category is patient with fellow drivers as well. So anyway, if you have questions, let us know, or certainly check out the DOT website.
Thanks.
Great question.
No further business or reports tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
So Barbara, I was thinking, I went my report from the last meeting about the event in Minneapolis. That said, you're right, it is somewhat getting the church. Thank you. Yeah, that does sound like I said, yeah, I tried to get the terms together.